Alright, devlog for August 2022. So I am done with the foundation of the game. I've reworked the final things I had to rework in the code, and I now have a foundation that I'm very happy with. The game is actually coming together very well. I'm very happy with all of everything. I'm not going to go ahead of myself. It will become clearer when I go through all of the points. So I'm just going to do rapid fire, go through all of the notes I have in my text file, and just go along with it. So last month was a bit of a mess, the devlog. It didn't end up as a complete disaster. That took like over an hour, but I missed a lot of things. A lot of things were not discussed. So now I'm just going to try and do a much better job. All right, so reworked furniture with dynamic colors. Okay, let's talk about that first. So we're going to go to template labs, which is where I have been reworking my furniture. So the problem I had with the furniture was that the furniture models were made like 2 years ago and they were terrible. So I redid all of the furniture, and not only that, I've also reworked the way the color system works. So the way the color system used to work is it had a I should actually open the material. That might be a good idea. So let's go to base shaders, base din triple, dynamic triple. So the way, where do I start? So the way it used to work, it's basically just I rendered separate mask files for which colors I wanted, and then it overrode the color on that mask. The problem with that system is that it overrode everything. So it also overrode like dirt and grunge textures, which basically means that everything looked way too clean. So the new system I use is basically in Substance Painter. I'm not going to open Substance Painter, but in Substance Painter, you can make user layers, and those user layers you can then give a value. So what I've done is I made user layers, and those user layers were then detracted from the grunge and the dirt layers, which means I end up with something like this, where you can clearly see that the grunge and the dirt is in the dynamic color mask. So this is a dynamic color mask. I can have up to 3 dynamic colors in all 3 of the channels. So red channel, green channel, blue channel. So I can have 3 dynamic colors. So if I just get an object, so din, okay, another thing that I've done is what I used to do for furniture with dynamic colors is I used to just make hundreds of, I mean not hundreds, but I would have just made a separate class for each furniture piece. That was stupid because that basically means you end up with potentially hundreds of furnitures if you're gonna go like really late into the game development. So that's awful. So what I've done is I've just have one class and you can just override the decor mesh. So let's say I want a desk long. Here's the desk. So here you can see the desk, and you can also see the dynamic colors. So the green channel and the red channel. And then I can select my pre-made preset for Akova, which is the company. And then I can just say, okay, I want this color, so orange. And I want, for this, I want white. And it maintains the grunge and the dirt layers. So the dirt just adapts to the color. So no matter which color you take, the dirt is not like affected. So that's very nice. What else do I have? I mean, so much like a cabinet. Oh wait, that's the wrong cabinet. So here you see, and then I can again change the colors. It's great. It works perfectly. It's very fast to do. It's actually faster than the previous method, because in the previous method I had to manually export the mask files from Substance Painter, and with user layers I can just tell it in the final export how also, hey Substance, also export my user file. Oh my god! Also export my user mask file. So yeah, that's basically that. So that's just dynamic furniture. Another thing I have for furniture is physics objects. So physics objects are now finally fully supported. Go. Whatever. Okay. So and these dynamic furnitures use just the same stuff, so they can also be changed in color. There is a weird little bug where if I clone an object, I can't change the color until I do this. It's a weird bug. I know it causes it. I just need to fix it. But like, it's not a minor. It's not a big problem. You wouldn't even notice it in game. It's just an editor problem. So yeah, that's that. That's furniture done. Music is done. Yeah, I'm not gonna really talk about that. I needed a new main menu track. I didn't like the new main menu track. I've uploaded the new main menu track to my YouTube. It's the one with the foggy green thumbnail. That's the new main menu track. I'm very happy with it. The problem I had with the old main menu track is that it was fully electronic, and since I'm using a combination of electronic and in the metal music, I wanted to also have a combination of metal and electronic music in the main menu. So it's basically based more of the original very first main menu track that I ever made, that I made like 2 years ago. But it's a lot better. I'm very happy with it, and this means that all music tracks are now done. Improvements to gameplay. Why did I put it here, and what do I mean by that? I don't know what this... is this meaning flinching? No, flinching is here. I mean, I have made improvements to gameplay. I just don't know what exactly. So I have made improvements to gameplay. Bug fixes related to damage tracing. Yeah, so the way damage tracing used to work was actually wrong. So this is going to be a bit complex. I actually don't have Visual Studio open. I can just explain it. So the way damage traces used to... So when I'm shooting a bullet when I'm shooting a fast bullet, I'm using like line traces to trace for damage. That line trace needs a specific collision channel to look for. So the way I thought it used to work was I thought it looked for a channel based on the... So if you have a... So the way it used to work is it used to use the visibility channel. So the visibility channel on a pawn has a block for visibility. So I thought, okay, I need to trace against visibility and then have it block. The way it actually works is the trace is for the trace itself. So it's not looking at the visibility of the character. It's determining the trace channel of the trace itself. So what I should do is, instead of looking for visibility, I should check for projectile. So because I'm not looking for visibility collisions, I'm looking for... because the projectiles that I'm shooting, that are shooting a line trace, are of course part of the projectile family of collision channels. So I've added that for projectile, and now it works properly. So what was the problem if I didn't notice it? The problem was penetrating projectiles didn't work. So plasma rifles can actually penetrate through multiple enemies at the same time. But because of the way damage traces was set up, they would block during the first hit against the pawn, and then they wouldn't penetrate further, which I never actually realized what was happening. So I've changed all the damage traces to use projectile damage traces, check for overlaps instead of blocks, so because overlaps allow for multiple damage traces. And that has also fixed the melee. So melee was basically broken because melee basically used on block, which basically means that if a melee attack hit a wall, basically all melee traces were invalidated, which means that if you were standing close to a wall, you couldn't be hit with melee attacks. That has now been fixed, so melee attacks will now always go through if you have line of sight and are in range of the melee attack. So yeah, it's a bit confusing. I'm not going to dwell on it too long. It's just, I didn't know back when I wrote that code how exactly... It takes a while to understand how the collisions... I used to like curse at Unreal's collision system that it was stupid and convoluted, but now that I understand how it works, I'm a bit more positive about it. It's just a matter of you have to learn it. Save system improvement. So yeah, the save system has been improved. Because of the reworks that I've done to a lot of the gameplay objects, the save system didn't work anymore. So I had to improve the save system. I had to fix a lot of bugs related to the save system. The save system is still not perfect. Occasionally, I come across objects that are not properly saved and basically will crash on reload. Pretty much all, like, my game is pretty much free of like big bugs and big game breaking glitches. It's pretty much has none. I mean, not none, but if like very little. all bugs and big crashes related to the game are basically related to the save system. Saving is a pain in the ass. It's an annoying system, and it's something that I'm continuously improving. So yeah, I have fixed. So I have pretty much always have debug. So if I'm here and I press quick save, I actually have total gameplay objects saved. And if I reload, I get a lot of like debug information, and that debug information I'm just keeping on, so I can like keep track of if everything is being correctly saved and reloaded. So yeah, that's something I will continue to work on, but it works very well. I can pretty much always go through a level relying on the save system, but sometimes it just crashes because something didn't get properly saved. But yeah. All right, flinching. I'm just gonna do that here. So, one of the most important things that I still had to do was actually improve the feeling of shooting at enemies. The feeling of shooting at enemies is honestly pretty. Oh no, wait, I don't have a navigation mesh here, so I have to actually go back to the old map. The most important thing about first-person shooters is feel, and the game should feel right. And a game doesn't feel right if enemies are not correct. If the reacting to what you are doing to them, which is inflicting pain. So I'm going to test it with the robot is really obvious for flinching. I'll show it first. So yeah, he flinches, and you could actually see like he flinches based on which side. So if I hit the left shoulder, he will go to the left, and if you hit the right shoulder, he goes to the right. It's exactly what you want. So I've made a custom, and so if I go to animations and go to, yeah, I'll show you human animations. It runs, all creatures run on the exact same flinching code. So this right here is the damage. It has not the title because I'm lazy. This right here is the flinching handler. So the way the flinching handler works is when it takes damage, the pawn sends a message to the animation instance. Hey, this entity has taken damage from this direction, relative position to the main bone. So every character has a main bone where it was basically the center of gravity. So the center of gravity would be here for the robot. So based on the center of gravity, it then calculates where it should flinch, which I usually can. So what I should do is actually use an angular velocity calculation. So I should actually realistically, physically calculate the angular velocity based on where I'm hit. I actually tried to do that, but it's just a pain. Dynamics, I mean, I know dynamics, but it's just pain. The problem is you have to first convert to an axis angle, then you have to convert back again. It's a pain in the ass. So I'm basically using I figured out a cheap workaround that is a lot easier to comprehend. So instead of doing like a complex physics calculation, it's going to take me forever to fine tune. The way flinching works is it basically, so if I hit this fella here in the left shoulder, I'm gonna mark and say, okay, I have a hit here that is going in this direction. It's going. I tell the flinch handler, look, I have hit something here relative to the main center of gravity, and it's going here. So what I'm doing is I'm then performing a line trace relative in the same direction based on the length of the damage. So based on the damage, I will line trace to, for example, here based on the damage. So if I do little damage, it will line trace here. And if I do big damage, it will line trace all the way over here. So what I do is I get this point, then I get the point relative to the main bone here. I then take the look angle in quaternions to the first point and the look angle to the second point, and then I get the quaternion delta, the difference between the 2 points, and that difference will then be added to the rotation of the main bone. Actually, not just the main bone, but to the entire spine. So the entire spine will interpolate to that position. And in order to actually like perform the animation, basically it uses a curve. So it basically just follows a curve. I explained this last month as well. So if I go to animations, and I think it's, where did I put it? I have a curve somewhere. a flinch curve. I can probably find it if I go to Speedkills content. Flinch. Yeah, flinch curve. So this right here is the flinch curve. So whenever a entity is hit, it basically adds an entry to an array, and that array will just interpolate through this to this curve. So it will just follow this curve and then end it, and it will actually stack multiple instances of flinching on top of each other. So if you hit an enemy multiple times in quick succession, it will basically flinch twice, and you get that extra like flinch. And you saw that with the when I was shooting this. So that's basically flinching. It works very well. Also, it takes the mass of an entity into consideration. So bigger enemies will flinch less than smaller enemies. Water. All right, moving on. Moving platforms are fixed. Okay, yes. I have finally fixed elevators. So as I've already explained multiple times in previous devlogs, that elevators don't work correctly. Elevators are basically they force you into the ground. They force you into the ground, and you basically can't move while you're standing on a moving elevator. I have fixed this, and you can now finally correctly move on moving platforms. You no longer get stuck in them. Also, physics objects no longer go crazy. So previously, this physics barrel would just go haywire. It would just bounce all over the place. It was terrible. I finally fixed that, and it now smoothly just... Also, it now accelerates properly, see? It accelerates, and then it slows down when it reaches destination. It no longer just... That was stupid. So I would just... in one velocity without any form of acceleration, it would just move to its next position. So yeah. I'm very happy with it. So the way I've do this is that I actually have a new class specially made for this, which I call the moving platform movement class. Platform movement class, and that platform movement class can basically be attached to any actor. So I can actually reuse that movement system that I've made for this elevator for normal moving platforms. So I used to actually have moving platforms there. I've removed them because they were using the old system. I don't actually have any moving platforms right now. I just have elevators. I mean, I also have this elevator. This is a vehicle elevator. So yeah, you can actually see the acceleration a lot better on this one. So acceleration and slow down. Oh, beautiful. Okay, next point. Working mirrors, yes. So I've added working mirrors. It was just a little fun thing I wanted to do. Because I already have working cameras for the top portals, it was actually very easy for me to adjust code to allow for mirrors. So I just have perfect mirrors. The way it works is it just has a camera on the upper side that just exactly mirrors your camera position, and then it flips the image, which I actually forgot to do. I actually forgot to flip the image first, so I was like testing the mirror, and I'm like, why does it look so weird? Why doesn't it work properly? And then I'm like, oh fuck, yeah, of course. You have to flip the image because that's what happens with mirrors. Everything is flipped. So here I'm holding the gun in the right hand. In the mirror, it looks like I'm holding it in the left hand because that's how mirrors work. It took me an hour to figure that out. Good job, me. They don't really work very well in levels. So in this like very lightweight test map, I don't have a lot of performance needed. So I have a lot of performance overhead. But the frame rate does dip quite significantly in like actual levels. So I will have to like design the levels with the mirrors in mind. So I'm actually going to go back to the template labs first, because I can actually very easily explain that. So why mirrors are such a performance hit in like normal design levels. These walls, so move there. Okay, so these walls actually block the rendering of everything that's behind it. So all of these objects that are behind this wall are actually not rendered when I'm like obviously not in wireframe mode. So that's very good for performance. Here's the problem. Mirrors don't work because they are based off the position of the player camera. Mirrors, this is what mirrors see. As you can see, mirrors can actually see the entire levels, which means that mirrors actually render everything. So when I'm looking in a mirror in a level, this is what the mirror sees, and the mirror renders all of these objects behind me. And that's why mirrors are so insanely performance intensive. So if I could figure out a way to make mirrors not render things that are like, if I could properly like, I need to figure out if I can set some kind of distance variable, like, hey, don't render items beyond this distance. And if I can do that, I could probably fix the performance penalty and actually place these mirrors in my actual levels. But yeah. I mean, it was just a little fun thing I did. It took me only like 4 hours to get it working. So it's like, if I can't get... I'll try and make the performance work, but if I can't make the performance work, I mean, whatever. I mean, I can always design levels with mirrors in mind, so I can make very small sub-levels that have a mirror that basically don't require a lot of performance. But yeah. This is, by the way, also how Hitman not Absolution, the Hitman reboot does their mirrors. Very fun. Okay, we are at 20 minutes. Let's aim for less than half an hour. So let's go rapid fire. Many things I don't remember. Very helpful note me. Performance improve. That's not how you write improvements. Related to ticks. Okay, I actually have to start Visual Studio. I can't explain this. I can, but... Okay, ticks. So every object in the game ticks. So ticks are basically gameplay ticks, and every gameplay tick. So both actors and the components attached to actors can tick. So here's basically the mistake I made with ticks. What's a good class to test this on? Also, the way I figured this out was actually through mirrors. So with mirrors, I only tick the mirror logic when I'm in range. But I realized that it wasn't working properly, and I wanted to know why is it not working properly. And then I figured out that something specific doesn't work in a way I thought it works. Let's use this. Okay, here is the fucking thing I did wrong with ticks. So here I have a door mesh. Meshes should not tick because they don't run any logic. So door mesh primary component ticks can ever tick is false. This prevents a component from ticking, which is huge for performance. This is how I used to do it. Door frame mesh set component tick enabled. False. I'm just gonna... Hopefully intelligence is gonna catch on. It's the same for actors, by the way. So you can do this. Set actor tick enabled. Intelligence is not cooperating. So what's wrong with this? This is the thing. These functions don't do jack shit in constructors. This is a constructor. If you do these functions in constructors, it basically just ignores it. Which means that all my actors and all my components connected to actors were ticking, which was horrendously for gameplay performance. So obviously, what I should do is do this. Primary component tick B can ever tick. That actually disables ticking. So I had basically had all my possibly hundreds of components that should not be ticking. And basically just checking for gameplay logic. And you might say, oh, but you don't run any gameplay logic. Yeah, but it's still like, they're still registered in the game controller. So the game controller still registers all of those ticks, and it still needs to go through a list of all of them. And there are a lot of extra performance here. So even if something isn't running game logic, just the fact that it needs to look up the tick results in massive performance loss. I mean, not massive, but it is a significant performance loss if you do it for literally every single freaking component you have. So yeah, I had to go through all of my old classes and make sure for everything I switched out the set component tick enabled to primary component tick B can ever tick. And that And yes, this was a huge deal, and there was a very noticeable. I think I gained 10 to 15 frames per second in the editor when I fixed this. So yeah, very fun. I wish Unreal really should give you a warning in the compilers that, hey, you have this function in the constructor that doesn't do anything. You might want to use a different function. I mean, this is not a function, it's a variable, but whatever. Moving on. Loading assets is still dodgy. Yeah, so the game stutters still horribly during first load. After it has loaded pretty much every asset, it's completely smooth, but the way Unreal handles asset loading is just awful. Maybe what I can do is basically just load all. I think I'm also loading a lot of duplicate assets. So what I probably should do is just at the launch of the game preload all assets in memory. That would prevent, but it's just too long to explain. Unreal's biggest problem is loading. I knew that before. If you ever wondered why Unreal games stutter so much, it's because loading assets is a pain in Unreal. Alright, jump cut. I had to quickly do something. Okay, scene depth fog. So what I used to use for fog effects was I used to use atmospheric fog and exponential height fog, which are fine, especially for outdoors. They're actually very good, but they do take a performance penalty, and I actually really want the maximum performance. And what is actually better to use, and you can actually see it in action here, is use scene depth fog. So what you have is you have render layers. So if I go to buffer visualization overview, here are all the render layers. The thing that's important is scene depth. So scene depth basically tells you how far an object is away. So you can see that it's basically like a fog effect. Turns out you can actually use that to create your own fog effect for very cheap by reusing that render layer. And that render layer is always made, so it doesn't really take any performance, barely any. So what I have is, if I go to materials, post-processing, I have scene depth fog. So this is my scene depth fog material that I can overlay in the post-processor. It's very simple. It just takes the scene depth layer, it divides it by a max range. So at max range, it's maximum fog. I then clamp it to 0 to 1 to prevent like overflow. And then I just linearly insert between the normal output process, so what you will see, with a fog layer. So this is the fog color, and that's how it works. It's very simple, and it is dirt cheap on performance. It's great, and it's noticeable. Again, a noticeable increase in frame rate during testing by switching out the atmospheric and exponential height fog for my own like scene depth fog. So yeah, very good. Posters and icons. So yeah, I made some new icons for the company and all the stuff related to it. So the way I made them, so I wanted to make them in Krita first, but Krita has terrible vector image processing, and I really didn't want to like get another freaking program just to do vector images. But so what's important to know about modern like company icons is they're usually made with mathematics in mind. So they're basically made with mathematics shapes, but you can't really do mathematics shapes in Krita because Krita doesn't have coordinates for the vector vertices. Which all Krita needs is a way to type in the exact coordinates you want your vertices to be, and it would be fine for vector. So I just used it in so I just use Blender. I just use Blender, and I basically just cut shapes by other shapes. So for example, this text is being intersected by a different shape, which is also intersecting this octagon. And that's how I basically create this company logo. So here I just have the logos. So these are all the icons I quickly made. So the triangle icons are for the what do you say it, the brigade, so like the different military units. So the free is of course the assassin of brigade that has those free night vision goggles with the free like Sam Fisher night vision goggles, the rhino, and then the shock. these are for company division. So this is the aerospace division, which is just a plane with a wrench. No, this is a spanner, right? Oh god, my I hope I have it correct. This is the company logo simplified. This is the science division, botanics division, exploitation and mining division. It's a flag with a pickaxe. Very nice. The human division, the physics division, weapons division, a gun barrel. This one was pretty difficult to make. And the square ones are the weapon logos. So this is for energy weapons. This is for explosive weapons. This is for fuel weapons. This one I need to remake. This one is kind of crap. I'm probably going to take the old fuel logo and use it as a reference and then trace over it. This is pretty bad. Melee weapons, I just used the melee sword. I couldn't be bothered to make a logo, so I just picked the melee sword and put it in. Nuclear weapons, plasma weapons, shotgun shells, small arms. I just used the small arms models I had, and that's it. And so I still need to redo some of the textures. That doesn't take a lot of time. So I need to just go through a bunch of the old textures and replace the old logos that I had with the new ones. So yeah. So yeah, those are like the new icons. They're just improvements. Doors. Finally, after 2 years, doors finally have texture. So they actually have that company logo and yeah. Doors are finally textured. Hooray. In editor debug line helpers. Yes, we're gonna go to the map. Map 2. Map 2. This is map 2. Map 2 is fucking huge. So, I've been going through the old levels and I've not been completely remaking them, but I have been improving them in terms of like gameplay and decoration. So I've actually been working a lot of decorations. So because I'm done with the foundation, I can actually make content, so I can make more stuff. So for example, I've made this car model. I mean, this car model I actually started on like months ago. I finally bothered to finish it. So yeah, the car model, the heli model, I mean helicopter between brackets. And yeah. So there's a lot more stuff. There are also a lot more enemies now. Because I've improved performance by so much, I can actually afford having more enemies on screen. Which was actually a problem I had. I just didn't have enough enemies for it to be fun, but now I can just have more enemies. But one thing I really struggled with while redoing some of the levels was that I had a really hard time figuring out which trigger was connected to which like triggered module. So what I've done is I've actually added debug line helpers that help me find which trigger is connected to which object. So this trigger, for example, is connected to all of these spawn actors. Now it's not perfect. There are a few problems with this system. If I move it, it doesn't move with it. There are a few improvements, but just this alone was already a huge help. I will probably spend some more time on this, and I make sure that every single object that can be connected to other objects has a debug line helper like this. So I can basically just select them all in the editor window, and I can see which connects to everything, which would really speed up level development. So yeah. So this is basically a little bit of a preview of what map 2 looks like. Map 2 is very fun. It's actually a lot better than map 1. Map 1 actually isn't that good, which worries me a bit. I think the first map should actually be the best, but there's still time. And then we get to the end. Many things I don't remember. Yeah, there are probably a lot of things that I'm forgetting and not talking about. I mean, one little thing I can probably end this with is the level design. So because I changed the way lamps work from fully dynamic to fully static, I actually had this problem where if I have floors that are too close to each other, the lamps actually intersect with each other, and that causes massive graphical problems and performance problems. So for example, this floor used to be right on top of the other floor, but it caused these lights were basically intersecting with the lights on the lower floor, causing performance problems. So what I've done is I've basically extended these ramps, and their ramps are just pushed up so they aren't as close together. Same problem with this part of the level. So this part of the level used to have a floor wedged in between these two floors, which was causing massive performance problems because there were a lot of intersecting light sources. So the way I fix this is that I've added this ramp here, and it goes here, and then it just goes to the side. So it basically just diverts to the side a bit, goes through a vehicle section. I mean, not a vehicle section, but like a place where vehicles go through. So there are vehicles here. So the like larger hallways, and then it just goes back. Yeah. These objects right here are actually a good example of dirt with a dynamic object. Again, this bug is a bit annoying. Ceiling and ceiling corner. There you go. So here you can really see how the dirt just stays correct. Very nice. Very good. And that's it. Like, I'm done with like programming for the most part. So it's just part of content, playtesting the maps, getting the missing parts of decoration in. So there are still a lot of decorative stuff that's missing. Like I've added these cars, but there's still plenty of decorative stuff I'm missing. So I'm just adding further decorative stuff. I just playtesting, fixing bugs, and oh god, I just remembered something. I'm not going to show it. It just takes too long. I've added a death screen. So if you die, there is a death screen and you can reload the last save. That's also the reason why I had to rework the save system. And I've also added key binding. So you can now have key bindings with presets. So you have these presets that you can select. So you now have key bindings. So I've also added at the start of this months of work, I actually did a lot of stuff that needs to be in the game in order for it to like be able for me to be able to like send it out to people so that they can actually change their keybinds, they can actually reload the save after they die and stuff like that. I can't remember exactly everything that I've done for this, but I've added a lot of stuff that needed to be done, such as keybinds, such as death screens, in order to actually make the user experience good. So it's no longer just a weird developer game. It's actually something you can play yourself. So yeah, that's like the final thing. Goodbye. Signing out.